As we've been reporting, the Biden administration has waived 26 federal laws to allow construction of a new section of border wall. The president says he has no choice in the matter because Congress approved the funds before he took office, even though he doesn't think the walls are effective at stemming migration. Let's bring in CBS News immigration reporter Camilo Montoya-Galvez. Camilo, the administration says its hands are tied on the border wall. Is that true?
Well, good evening, John. It is true that Congress back in 2019 during the Trump administration approved funding for border barriers to be constructed in this specific section of Texas in the Rio Grande Valley. And it is true that legally the Department of Homeland Security has the option either to use that money or to lose it now that a new fiscal year is starting. The Biden administration, however, made the decision, John, to use that money for its intended purpose, which is to build border barriers and other infrastructure and technology that will, in their view, help Border Patrol agents interdict and detain migrants who are trying to enter the border illegally. So there is some truth to that. But what environmental advocates and some Democrats would argue, John, is that the administration, even if it had that legal obligation to use this money for that intended purpose, it did not have to waive all those federal laws that are meant to protect the environment and wildlife along the U.S.-Mexico border.
So now to whether this is effective, how much will the new stretch of border wall actually make a difference in the flow of migrants?
Excellent question, John, because I think most of our viewers do not know this, but every border wall structure along the U.S.-Mexico border is already a few miles away from the actual physical land border. So migrants who approach the wall are already technically on U.S. soil, and under federal law, Border Patrol has a legal obligation to process those migrants, whether they're behind or in front of the wall. So these migrants have to be processed. So in many ways, border walls do not prevent illegal entries, but instead they divert migrants to places that do not have existing barriers. And that's what we see in places like Yuma or the Rio Grande Valley or other places along the U.S.-Mexico border that do not have barriers along those sections. Most of the barriers right now that we see along the U.S.-Mexico border are in urban settings like El Paso and San Diego. So it's very important to note that a physical wall, because of our legal framework, does not physically stop Border Patrol from processing migrants. These migrants have to be processed.
And so over the summer, we saw migrant numbers drop, and now they're going up. Is there, and I'm sure there's not, but is there a simple explanation for why that happened?
Yes, correct. So, the push and pull factors that, as you know, typically drive migration are intensifying. I think that's the most simple answer I can provide, John. You have large-scale releases of migrants happening right now because, for example, until today, Venezuela did not accept U.S. deportations, and so most of the migrants have to be released. And that, in many ways, entices people and attracts people to come to the U.S.-Mexico border. There's also an ample supply of jobs here in the U.S., and that serves as a major pull factor. The Biden administration obviously has a reputation that it is more lenient on border policy than other administrations, including under former President Trump. And in terms of the push factors, we are seeing deteriorating conditions in countries like Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua intensifying. And in just Venezuela's case, as you know, 7 million people have left that country in recent years. It's the largest refugee exodus now in the world, even eclipsing the number of externally displaced people from war-torn countries like Syria and Ukraine. So this is a large-scale displacement crisis that the administration is also dealing with. So I think all of these factors are creating this perfect storm, John, that is undermining the administration's strategy, which early on, as you mentioned in the summer, had fueled a significant drop in illegal entries. That trend has been completely reversed, and we are now seeing near record levels of migration again, John.
And now we've been talking, you and I, about the Venezuelan migrants for a while. The administration is now resuming deportation of Venezuelans. What's behind that decision, and what does that mean?
Well, in September alone, over 200,000 migrants were apprehended by Border Patrol. That's the highest level in 2023, John. A quarter of those migrants, about 50,000 of them, were from Venezuela. That is a record high. Never before has the U.S. processed so many people from Venezuela in 30 days. And so the administration, concerned about even more Venezuelans coming here, and they have very valid reasons to be concerned about that, has convinced the Venezuelan government, to accept U.S. deportations for the first time in many years. We still don't know how many deportation flights will take place on a weekly basis, but we do understand, John, that some Venezuelans already in federal custody are set to be removed in the coming days, according to administration officials. And this, from the administration's perspective, will hopefully deter some migrants from coming here to the U.S.-Mexico or from crossing Panama's Darien Gap. As you know, tens of thousands of Venezuelans are crossing that jungle in Panama every month to reach Central America and hopefully eventually reach the U.S.
And just quickly, Camilo, does that mean that, because last month the administration said it would let hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans live and work legally in the U.S., does this change that policy?
I'm glad you're asking this question, John, because when the Biden administration announced this program, it said it was unsafe to return people to Venezuela, given the economic and political crisis in that South American country. Now the administration is restarting deportations to a country that just a few weeks ago it said was unsafe to return people there. So there is some inconsistency there. But when asked about this, administration officials told us, John, that they have long had a policy of returning Venezuelans and other people who come from countries with TPS programs if they're not eligible for them. As you know, the TPS program is only available to migrants from Venezuela who arrived in the U.S. from July 31st. So from the administration's perspective, anyone who came to the U.S. afterwards and any future arrivals are subject to deportation.
Camilo Montoya-Galvez in Washington. Thank you, Camilo.
Thanks, John.